State and Local. I'm Anne Marie Battistone, and you're watching Norfolk Public Access. I'm just thrilled to have our new state rep here with me today. He's going to talk about his experiences at the State House and how it's going so far, and what he's learned and so forth and so on. Oh, listen, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anne Marie.
Thank you.
Pleasure to be back.
Oh yeah, I'm delighted to have you because there was a time when I thought, oh well, our state rep lives right in town, and we can do all these interviews and so forth, and I just didn't get anywhere with it. So, so now tell me, are you on a board already, or are you on a committee that they put you right on?
So we recently were assigned committee assignments. So I am on 4 committee assignments. So I am the ranking minority on the operations, facilities, and building security, and then ranking minority on community development and small business. And then I am also on 2 other committees for economic development and public safety and homeland security.
Huh. Now, when you say ranking, does that mean you would be the senior Republican?
Yes.
And the only Republican, am I right?
Not so much the only Republican, but just as it, shapes up in the House. Obviously, 160 members. I think that
it's only about 10 Republicans, right?
There's 25 total right now. I believe that's the number. So dispersed over the expansive amount of committee assignments. I'm fortunate enough to...
Well, you're in demand then, all of you.
Yes, very much so.
Because, I think there was a time when there were only like 12.
Yes, it's fluctuated, obviously, session to session. I was with Representative Denise Garlick, who also represents part of Medfield, earlier this morning, and I believe she said
Republican?
She's a Democrat, and I believe she said that when she came in with her class, there were over, I think, around 40 Republicans. So it's fluctuated.
I wonder if she's been there a long time.
Yes, she has been. I don't know exactly how many terms, but she has been as a state representative for quite some time.
Now, so what are your duties involved? I realize they'd be different from the different committees, but what do you have to do on those committees? What are you responsible for?
Yeah, so enacting legislation and taking public comment in the hearings and taking those filed legislations and pushing it forward to the House floor and eventually to the governor's desk to push it forward. So that's where we really come together on those particular issues that people are bringing to us and really getting it across the finish line.
So you're not always in a hearing, right? Sometimes you all just work together?
Sometimes we have, smaller caucuses and then, committee meetings outside of the hearings where we go through the legislation that's been filed and brought to us. And then we have, obviously, the public hearings set forth where now, obviously, coming out of COVID, we can bring the public in and hopefully even expand that through Zoom and Teams meetings so that people that normally weren't adverse to coming in to the State House are now able to participate from afar.
I'm still astonished how frightened people are, but maybe, I don't know, but so tell me then, so the material that you're dealing with, did other members of the House propose that and then you're kind of evaluating it and fine-tuning it and so forth, or do you all propose things as well?
It's a combination. It's a combination of both. Between those committee assignments, you'll have representatives that are very instrumental in drafting that legislation, but legislation also comes from outside House counsel, that we're taking a look at every day. So.
Now, I'm interested about the Homeland Security part of it. What are you looking at now? What's come before you now?
Yes, so I'm not particularly, at this point, we haven't been briefed on exactly what that entails. But I can only imagine it goes into obviously public safety as a whole, major events that our state hosts, in coordinating efforts with public safety officials, both at the state level and the federal level, to assure that Bay Staters and the Commonwealth are doing everything possible to make sure constituents and the people that live in our state are safe, and visitors coming in are safe during these major events.
Now, as the ranking Republican, are you co-chairing with somebody else? Is that what that means?
Yeah. So as a ranking minority member, obviously the lead on the Republican side. But as far as the chair is concerned, those have already been designated or in the process of being designated. Not sure how that's going to shape up, but more often than not, it will be a lot of the Democrats that chair those positions.
Now, did you go through an orientation when you got there? What did that consist of?
Yes. So before we got started and sworn in January, the entire new class of the 193rd General Court, we got invited to University of Massachusetts Amherst for a 3-day
Really?
training. Yes, yeah.
Oh, did you stay in their hotel that's on campus?
We stayed at Hotel UMass, which was a beautiful hotel right on campus. They rolled out the red carpet for us, and I was not aware that University of Massachusetts had such a rich culinary program. You always think about Johnson and Wales, but their culinary program has received numerous awards, and the students there were fabulous to work with in providing us our 3 daily meals, and obviously lots of conversations that took place, and great training that was provided. Luckily for us, coming out of COVID, we got to experience that. The previous class did not. So they did invite some of those members to come back for training, even though they've been, involved with the State House for the last 2 years and filing the legislation and their aides and whatnot. But they were invited back, and it was a great learning experience.
And would you say it was sort of on a luxury level? Because when I was there, I graduated in '72 for my master's, and it was there, but I never remember it being anything that fancy. But it sounds like they've.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was on a luxury level. It was just they made sure everything was scheduled appropriately, and we had everything available to us to get through the 3 days. It was a very well thought out program that they provided us.
Gee, that's pretty. So it was a new people.
Yes.
And how many were you?
So 22, and I believe we had 2 seats that were up.
Still open?
Still open because of recounts in the state. So those reps also joined us. There were 4 additional, just because we didn't know where it was going to end up between the Democrat and the Republican. But nevertheless, it was a good program. And
so, what did the orientation involve? Were you explaining about how the bills work and how you
every portion of us becoming new legislators? So filing legislation, resources for our aides, constituent services.
And so they assigned you an aide?
They did not assign us an aide, but just as far as resources for our aides and contact lists within the State House and within the state as a whole. There's many times we have to be that go-between between Eversource and National Grid, so providing us with critical contacts throughout the state to make sure that we're able to help out our constituents in certain cases. That was all provided to us through the 3 days. So it was a full gamut of information, whirlwind coming at us. But yeah.
Oh, that's good. So you have clearly you have your own office, but do you have your own? No.
So that's funny you bring up the office. So being a newly elected official and the only Republican that was elected in the entire state, I always tell everyone I feel.
Wait, hold on. There was only one Republican candidate that made it through.
Yes.
Out of how many? Do you remember?
I don't know the exact number, but it's So yeah, I tell everyone I'm kind of the unicorn at the State House, and we have a really good leader on our side, Representative Brad Jones, and he really went to bat for me. When you're a new legislator, you go in what they call the bullpen. So it's 2 hearing rooms in the basement of the State House. Yeah, tables set up side by side where all the new legislators basically set up office. Gets very loud when you're trying to, have conversations with constituents or anyone else. With lots of voices in the background.
But you have your own office, don't you?
So luckily for me, 2 weeks ago, I got assigned my office.
Oh.
Yes,
But not everybody does when they're coming in new?
I am the only new class member who officially has an office right now.
Huh.
So, yes.
But you were the only one elected.
Yes, on the Republican side. So, unfortunately for my friends on the Democratic side, they still have to wait a couple of weeks until all the committee assignments are ironed out and all the chairs, because new chairs are being put in place and they move offices. Until all of that is put in place, then they start assigning the empty offices to the rest of the incoming class.
Now you can have your own aide, right?
Yes.
You don't have to actually. I assume the state pays for that.
Yes. So our legislative aides. So every state representative has available to him or her a paid position for a legislative aide. So I do have one legislative aide who's paid by the state.
But you chose this person?
I chose this person, yeah. His name is Nicholas Tagg.
Is he from Rentham?
My chief of staff. So he's actually from Charlton, but he lives in Brighton. So he gets to the office very easily. He's at the State House every day.
Now, how'd you find him?
So Nick was actually our previous state representative's aide, Sean Dooley. So I felt coming in, I needed someone who kind of knew the ropes and knew the lay of the land. I thought that was going to be very beneficial, to me. And Nick has, absolutely done, great things for me and our district thus far. So.
So now, are there some of the issues that are in these committees? Are there any that are interesting that you might want to talk about? Some of these different specific things you're looking at?
Yes. So obviously, I ran on a platform of, development, the appropriate development here in the district, small business. I'm a small business owner.
I was just going to say that.
Yes, I'm a small business owner, so I'm very.
And were you a business major at you went to UMass Amherst, right?
No, I went to Syracuse for my undergrad.
Sorry.
Yep. So communications and rhetorical studies major, but then I continued my education and got my MBA at California State.
Oh, that's right.
Yes, in international business, because at the time I was traveling internationally for a company that I worked for out of the UK.
Oh, really?
Yes. So yeah. But small business wise, big proponent of small business and having that growth within our district and our towns. I think that's the most substantial growth that we can have, especially this day and age. Having entrepreneurs opening up business quite extensively. That's a lot of where my focus lies these days.
I've just got to interrupt that. So where have you traveled to on that previous?
Yeah. So I traveled to the UK once a quarter. I traveled to Barcelona, Spain quite often, Mexico City and Guadalajara.
Middle East or just Europe
yeah, not so much Middle East. I was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, quite often. Cali and Bogota, Colombia. So I was all over the place.
Cali. Now, Bogota. Were you in Bogota?
Yes.
What was it like there? It's supposed to be very dangerous.
So
kids living all over the street.
Yes. Fortunately for me, so I was nervous going over. At the time I went over, there wasn't too much going on, but I had really great guides with me and business partners that obviously knew the lay of the land and had their own connections. So we were well protected. On the other hand, when I used to travel to Guadalajara and Mexico City, there was one time where I actually got stopped with one of my business partners, and it was a police official pulled us over. I remember I had just purchased a new iPad. My company had purchased me a new iPad. The police officer, speaking in Spanish, told my business partner for me to hand over any of my
Get out.
electronics. So I had to give him my iPad. I had to give him the $300.
Were you robbed?
$300 in cash in order to let us go.
Ouch.
He said he was going to tow the car, and meanwhile we were en route to go to one of the medical device facilities that we were going to see, Beck and Dickinson at the time. So.
Did you report that?
No, there's no in Mexico. There's no sense.
I mean, here, did you tell anybody here that maybe they could have some?
No. Which, looking back, we probably should have. But I notified the head of the managing director for my company.
The American consulate in Mexico would be.
Yeah, we should have.
Really?
I did notify my company. I don't know if they did, but it was kind of
Now, how long ago was this?
Yeah, it was in my.
This just goes to show you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How long ago was this?
Maybe about 8 years ago. Yeah.
And
that
now
happened.
I'm sure it's much worse.
I'm sure it's much worse. I was just happy to just go off to my scheduled meeting. I knew I didn't feel I was in danger at any point. It was just a simple shakedown from a corrupt.
Did they know you were Americans? You think that was what it was?
Yes, most certainly.
Sheesh.
Yeah.
I mean, now it's just so horrible what's happened with these.
The kidnappings and
the cartels,
yes,
which have been enabled by our White House,
yes,
to the point where, I mean, it's very hard on those people that live down there that aren't.
Yes, it's unfortunate, that our border is suffering. Yeah, and obviously the amount of fentanyl and drugs pouring through our borders every day. I mean, it's been a problem for every administration.
But nothing like this.
But nothing like this. It's getting.
Been at this. So is there? Well, I guess what I was maybe I didn't ask very clearly. So is there any particular topic that's interesting you might want to, share with people that you're working on in these bills? Is there one that's particularly interesting?
So there's one piece of legislation that I filed that kind of affects all of the towns that I serve, which. Full Tri-Town, Rentham, Plainville, Norfolk, Millis Precinct 1, Walpole Precinct 5, which is South Walpole, and then Medfield 3 and 4. So each of our towns are obviously dealing with budget constraints at this point. And here in Norfolk, we obviously have a new fire station that just got passed, amongst other, capital projects that we have on the forefront.
The school, the feasibility study is still being done.
Freeman Kennedy School, which I was at a meeting last night with the architects to go through, what it's ultimately going to look like and potential costs that will come out in the next month or so. But with these capital projects on the horizon, we also have a vocational school in Tri-County that, 50 years ago, all of these vocational schools were being built around the same time, and the state fully funded those schools. Now we're at a point where each of these schools has to be, rethought and new construction taking place. And now it falls back on the town. So we have 11.
Really?
We have 11 towns that Tri-County services. All of our 6 towns where we send students to that school, and we're looking at a price tag of about $300 million, which spread across all of our towns. That's a huge.
Gee, I haven't heard about this.
Yeah, so I don't remember exactly what that would. I
haven't heard a peep about that in any of these discussions.
Yes.
So now the one that's in Walpole, that's the I want to say husbandry, but the
agricultural school.
That's part of that system, right?
It's part of the system, yes.
But you're not the rep for that part of Walpole.
Not that part of Walpole, even though we can send some of our students to the agricultural school as well. But Walpole Precinct 5, which is South Walpole, closest to the stadium.
And so now, I interrupted you. So you were saying.
Yeah. So the bill that I've introduced into legislation is centered around.
Oh, you introduced it.
Yes.
Now tell me, how did you learn how to write that? Was that at the meetings at the 3-day?
So
how did you learn what was the format and all?
So no, you can. I mean, it's pretty simplistic actually. you come with an idea, you address it to House Counsel, and House Counsel dresses it up, puts it in legal jargon for an actual bill to be filed. So I give them the concept of the bill and legislation that I'd like to file, and House Counsel comes back with any edits. We tweak it around before we submit it as an actual bill.
And what was it? What was your?
Yeah, so it's centered around MSB, Massachusetts School Building Authority legislation, and
this same thing you were just. Okay.
Yes, and the formula is used today. So we have a situation where that funding mechanism for schools is way out of whack against too old, based on inflationary inflation, the cost of goods at this point, and we also need to reimagine the way we build these vocational and technical schools. The cost associated with those schools is much greater than a traditional high school or elementary school. Because
of equipment that they need, that sort of thing?
The amount of equipment that they need, the spaces are much larger, and we need to reimagine the way we look at funding those schools and supporting the towns and cities that are on the hook for those schools to give them more leeway to plan for their budgets further down the road, so it's not going back on the town as far as their budget is concerned.
So what was what was the gist of that then?
So it's a feasibility study on increasing the square foot price overall for those particular schools over what we see now for their funding mechanism. So I think right now the square footage price is around $366 a square foot, where more
to run the school
for building costs.
Building costs,
where really we need to be in the 600s, 700s at this point with the amount of inflation that we're experiencing and the cost of goods going up.
Now, did you have to talk to officials from the schools to ascertain what they needed as opposed to what they currently get?
So I was already doing that even during the campaign. I was actively engaged in these meetings, especially with Tri-County and what it was going to do and affect all of our district towns, and speaking with town administrators and the superintendents as far as budget constraints. So that was something that I proposed to all stakeholders, and they thought it was a good idea, and I pushed it through as far as creating a bill, and I've had a lot of support thus far. Hopefully we can move it along. Obviously there's always budget constraints, but hopefully this funding mechanism can be allocated towards those schools as we look to kind of bridge the gap here between outside schools and in-town district schools that we need to fully fund.
And so what would was there a percentage that you proposed to increase, or how did that, how were the numbers?
No, it's basically just a feasibility study to take a new look at.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay,
yes,
right.
Yeah, at the formula that we currently have today, because obviously MSBA funding, it was written into law 20 plus years ago. Obviously times have changed. We need to look at our funding mechanisms and how we support those new building projects in the future.
Now, how much of your time does this take up?
So being a new rep, I'm being pulled.
You are salaried.
Yes.
What is that salary now? What was it, 75 something?
I believe it's around 75,000. Yes.
So it's kind of covering your expenses.
Yes.
I mean, it's,
Yeah. So
going in and out, you get a per diem, don't you?
Yes. Being pulled in different directions, left and right. I'm trying to obviously be engaged as much as I can across the 6 towns, and going to Board of Selectmen meetings, development meetings, economic development meetings, school board meetings, and then other district-wide events to make sure I'm engaged with the community, and hearing those concerns or anything that they'd like as far as constituents. Ultimately, I am their voice on Beacon Hill, so making sure that I am sewn in with the community and make sure that information gets back to the appropriate people on Beacon Hill.
You still work full-time though, right?
Yes.
You work from home?
I do work from home, so it's very I can make my own schedule. It's very flexible.
It's got to be a change for you, though.
It is a change, but it's doable. It's, like I said, it's very flexible. I have a great chief of staff in Nick Tagg, where I shared my calendar, my work calendar. So if I happen to be, out of town for business, Nick has all that information, so he's not booking anything important in the calendar. But at the moment, I'd say, I'm at the State House about twice a week right now, and on constant meetings throughout the week, and obviously in the district. I think it's very important for me to be in the district, just as well as being at the State House, making those connections and.
Now, I was just going to ask you, what are your office hours in Norfolk?
So we're just in the midst of creating office hours. So we're gonna do monthly office hours or coffee hours. Hopefully, maybe here at Scylla's or the library. So we're just trying to get that off the jumpstart that at the moment between the 6 towns and figure out.
That hasn't started yet?
It hasn't started yet, but we will be putting that out shortly.
Oh gosh!
Yes.
Well, it's been pretty exciting, hasn't it?
Yes, yeah. It's been a whirlwind.
It's quite a nice building. I've been in that building. It's pretty impressive. The old, the floors, the old tiles.
Yeah, it's a museum.
Yeah.
Every time you walk in and I see something new, I still don't have my bearings straight in that building. I get lost every time.
Oh, yes.
Some of the elevators, go to certain levels, and you never know where you are.
Because all the hall looks alike. They don't have. There's no paintings on the walls, right? It's just the doors that you see on the. Nothing on the walls, really.
There are a lot of paintings and portraits on the walls.
But down those corridors where the offices are as well.
Not during, especially in my wing. I sit in the West Wing on the 4th level. My room is 473B in the West Wing. You're right. There's no portraits or
That's what
murals.
I meant to distinguish it, to say, I remember this is the.
Yeah. So there's
my floor.
There's committees. There's room assignments there. So I actually sit, even though I'm not on that committee. My area is in the higher education committee area.
Huh.
So that's where I sit.
And if people are pretty welcoming to you, pretty nice.
Yes, we have a great group of legislators. I've felt welcomed, and we have a lot of legislators that have lent their hand to support to me and have helped me along the way, answer any questions that I need. I just signed on to a new caucus called the Millennial Action Project, which we're going to have a future caucus, and it's to bridge that gap for new legislators and young legislators up to the age of 45, where we can kind of make sure we bring those bipartisanship ideas to the state level and communicate effectively with other legislators across other states. So, yeah.
I think we've run out of time. It's been very, very interesting. I mean, I'm just delighted that you won and you're a state rep.
Thank you.
So listen, thank you for watching. My guest was, I guess, is the interview's over. Our state rep, Marcus Vaughn, and I'm Anne Marie Battistone. This is State and Local, and you're watching Norfolk Public Access. Oh, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for having me again.